One thing that's important in preparing for a job interview is to have a general idea of what you can expect. What we're going to talk about now is what I would generally call the typical interview process. Now, not all interview processes flow the same way, but many interview processes are going to be pretty close to this, especially if it's an interview for a software developer. Usually, the first steps of the interview process is some sort of a pre-screening. Now, it can depend on the company or the job position, but in many cases, someone who's not super technical will often conduct a pre-screening. They just want to find out some basic information about you and to filter out the noise. They want to get rid of candidates that aren't really going to be able to pass a more rigorous interview or who aren't really serious about the job so that they don't waste the time of the interviewers in the company. The best way to have success in a pre-screening that I've found is to be honest, to be personable, and to be enthusiastic. Now, if you pass the pre-screening, typically the next interview is going to be some sort of a technical interview. And the technical interview is usually geared at figuring out how technically competent you are. Obviously, technical interviews are going to vary widely between different companies and different job positions. But I've found that there's some common elements that you'll find in many different technical interviews. We're not going to go into the details of these technical elements right now in this module, but we'll be covering many of these things in the upcoming modules. Typically, though, you can expect the technical interview to comprise of some set of programming-related problems, some questions of general knowledge in the area that you're professing to have knowledge in, and some sort of explanation of your job experience. My biggest general tip of advice here is to never lie. If you don't know the answer to a question, just say you don't know, but you are curious to find out what the answer is. In almost all cases, lying or making up an answer is going to be easily detected and is going to call your integrity into question, which is not a good thing. Many times, especially in big companies like Microsoft or Google, you're going to have a second interview or a panel interview. Oftentimes, the second interview might be another technical interview, or it might be a more soft skill related interview by a manager, project manager. And we'll talk about those types of interviews a little bit more when we talk about soft skills. But perhaps the most intimidating type of interview for many developers is the panel interview, where you have more than one interviewer asking you questions or asking you to solve some problems while the entire panel is evaluating your responses. The important thing to remember with a panel interview is to remain confident and to try to address each one of the panel members and not just focus on one of them. Then finally, if all goes well, hopefully you'll be dealing with an offer letter. And we're not going to talk too much about offer letters in this course since we're dealing with preparing for a job interview. But my best advice here is that in most cases, you shouldn't be afraid to negotiate a little bit. Now, I'm not suggesting that you play hardball or act arrogant, but I am suggesting that the biggest raise you might ever get is a raise that you negotiate yourself before you've even started the job.